Welcome to Speaking Highly with Jon Huck. I am Jon Huck. With me, until his dad says he's grounded, is Indy Fawcett.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, Indy?
Doing well. Doing okay. Yeah.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
Yeah, it's good to be podcasting.
Good to be podcasting. Very nice. Very nice. Today, we are talking about the ocean. The ocean is...
And not the Led Zeppelin song.
Not the Led Zeppelin song, although that Led Zeppelin song is pretty tight.
It deserves a podcast on its own.
That right. We will do a whole Led Zeppelin podcast, I'm sure. But yeah, the ocean is a great song. There've been quite a few songs written about the ocean, I think. But the ocean is fascinating to me personally. And I know when I say me personally, I feel like there should be a story of how like my dad was Aquaman or something, and there's nothing. It's like when I say me personally, it's like I'm from the Midwest. I didn't see the ocean until I was, in my 20s. But it's one of those things that is, I know, it's very, very important to survival of the human race. It's where we came from. It's where life came from. I think I've been swayed by the media in terms of not the news or press media, but
Fake
movies,
news.
film,
right,
TV, visual things. I think I've been influenced negatively by those things, and the ocean has always been kind of a thing I've been afraid of. I don't surf. I don't scuba dive.
It's an easy antagonist in a movie. Right.
Absolutely.
It's this big, vast thing that you're up against. Right.
Perfect storm. Like it's
right.
just, it beats you down. And with good reason, because the ocean is bigger than we are. It covers 70% of this planet. Like that's way more ocean than land. You know what I mean? Like that is, I think people don't realize that or don't think about it. I mean, there's a garbage island the size of Texas in the ocean. That's insane. How big that you can't see with the naked eye from shore. You know what I mean? You're not looking out going, oh yeah, I see it. It ain't there. Can't see it. It's too far away. And they say as of 2020, only 80% of the ocean, only 20% of the ocean has been explored. So This is a thing that we have access to on a regular basis, that scientists are going into and researching and studying every day. And only 80% and only 20% has actually been explored. 80% left still unexplored because it's too deep. It's too hard to get to. It's too dark. It gets so dark that light can't penetrate the darkness. That's how dark it gets. So, and the cold, I mean, you're talking like it's outer space on Earth. And we know more about outer space than we do about the deep, deep ocean, which I think also lends itself to sounding terrifying. We don't know. We don't know what's down there. And everything I've learned has come from movies like, Sharkosaurus or Jaws, like these like these real bad sci-fi, which now every ocean movie that involves a shark will admit openly with a tip of the hat that it is ripping off Jaws. Right. There's usually a line in there like, we're going to need a bigger, and then substitute whatever dumbass, we're going to need a bigger dinghy. We're going to need a bigger, they're always trying to, and with, I appreciate that because Jaws, one of my favorite movies of all time.
Of course, classic.
Top 3 or 4 for me, for sure. Scared the shit out of me as a kid. I assumed every shark was a man-eater. Then I read the book in college. I read Jaws in college because it was in the library. I never checked it out of the library, but when I had to take a dump on campus, I went to the library bathroom because it was in the basement, it was cool, and nobody ever used it.
Now you're really using your brain there. I love that.
Yeah, right?
Because I would have never thought of that. That's great.
Dude, I found that library. I was like, holy shit, I'm never leaving this bathroom. And as I was walking into the bathroom one day, I see on the bookshelf Jaws. So I grab it because I've seen the movie 1,000 times. And I start reading it on the toilet that day. I finished the book by the end of the semester. That's how many shits I took in that library. It was like, it was pretty fantastic. I finished that whole book. I was like so proud of myself for reading a whole book on the side, other than like what I was supposed to read for school and testing and whatever. Right. I read this entire book on the shitter. So I was like, oh, this is that's kind of how I discovered reading on the toilet. This is before cell phones. I used to just take a shit and sit there.
Right.
I can't fathom going into the bathroom now, not having my phone or a book or a magazine or something to look at. Like I can't just sit on a toilet and stare at the wall and go, I hope this poop happens. Like I just can't do that, dude. Yeah. So that was where I got that love of reading on the toilet. And I tried reading The Stand was the next book I picked up, Stephen King. And it was like 2,000 pages long or some shit. It was like, I still haven't taken enough dumps in my lifetime to have finished that book. There's just no way. Yeah. But I loved that movie. And I like being near the ocean. You know, yeah. I feel like it feels, I don't want to say vacation-y, but it feels like you're in a different place. It feels like there's a drive you can take in LA when you go down the 10 freeway and you are headed towards going up towards Malibu or whatever. I think it's
well,
when you're going to Santa
10
Monica,
goes into Santa Monica, and then the 1
you go you go
PCH,
through that tunnel. You go through that tunnel, and when you're going through right before you hit the tunnel, you're like, this is LA, I'm in LA, okay. Palm trees, LA. You go through that tunnel, you come out on the other side, and you're like, oh, I'm in vacation land. Like it's beach, and like it just gives it's a feeling, man. It just feels, and I'm guessing that might come from we're connected to the ocean. You know what I mean? Like life has come out of the ocean. That is definitely science, baby.
I grew up in San Diego, so it's like even more of like a marine biology powerhouse, you know? Because like I remember after high school going into community college, they had a really great oceanography program. Off. I know. Palomar Community College. Humble brag. But yeah, it was great because, like, you know, you had to take your GE requirements and all that, get all your science and math done. But I took oceanography because I'm more in the video production, obviously. So I didn't want to take too hard of a thing. But it actually ended up being really interesting and really challenging too, because there's just so many things going on, so many diverse, you know, systems going on, and also too one weird fact that I remember is a molecule of water can spend upwards of 700 years under before it even gets back to the surface again. So there's like a whole recycling process that goes with like the molecules in the water. So like the molecules that are on the surface, it took them more than 700 years to actually reach the surface, and then they they go back down, and then it's like sayonara for another 1,000 years. You know, it's like, dude, it's crazy. Yeah, it's weird.
That is, again, fascinating as shit. Yeah, but like it makes me, when I look at a movie getting made, or when I'm on set somewhere or working, I always laugh. I'm like, how does anything get made? Everything takes so incredibly long. The editing process itself is like so long. When you think about them building ships out of pixels for new Star Wars movies, that is tedious, insane amount of work. Getting people's schedules, that takes so long. And then you tell me that it takes 700 years for like plate tectonics, the Earth, like evolution, everything is going at a snail's pace.
Yep.
And it feels like, and at the same time, the Earth is like rotating fast. It's like, Jesus. And when you said systems, that's exactly, the ocean is just its own big giant system. And then within that are these little crazy, I mean, again, fascinating.
And knowing more about, and it's also like, you know, movies like Finding Nemo that like bring like ocean kind of to a new generation, right? Where it's like you get to, you know, like my generation, that came out when I was in like middle school or something. So it was like, oh yay, ocean. Yeah, you know,
fish
but
are
like
funny. Look, they're having a good time.
Right? Yeah. They need to go find Nemo. Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but like, it's kind of cool. Like each generation gets a different, you know, wave of it. You know, but you know, stories like that always come along about the ocean because we're always finding something new about it.
Well, and when you think about it, the storytelling in general, the ocean was always probably a very good source of
Drama.
myth,
Yeah,
like
myth,
drama.
legend.
You don't know what's in there. So a storyteller with a good imagination back in the day can make up whatever they want coming out of there.
Right.
So it's like,
Yeah,
we don't know
exactly.
what's in the ocean. And if you go in there if you don't eat your peas, and then you go, it's like a parent just trying to scare the shit out of their kids.
Right.
But
Well, it's like the
really,
Vikings, those are the high seas, like pirates. Like it all has to do with this like unbearable force that is ever present, and like land ho, like you're weary, like it takes everything out of you. It's all encompassing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
mean,
ocean.
do you notice I dressed like the ocean today?
Little pelicans.
Yeah, this
Hell
is
yeah.
a minor league baseball team. This is a
Nice.
Cubs affiliate minor league baseball team, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. And then I just wore blue because I figured,
Beautiful.
I don't know. Have you ever seen Dodger Stadium with nobody in it? Like
No.
a picture
yeah.
of
A picture. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at the seats, it's designed to look like a beach. There's like sandy looking seats at the front, and then it goes up to
I never
blue,
noticed
and
that.
then like a light blue, like the sky.
That's insane.
Yeah, so it's just interesting. But that's how ingrained Southern California, when people say Southern California, you assume that I have like long hair, a really dark tan, and then I say hella and bro and sweet a lot.
Yeah.
And then I live by the beach, right? But I wanted to do, and I don't think I backed into this. I did want to do an episode on the ocean because I do feel like it's something to celebrate, man. I mean, it is literally the reason any of us are here,
Right.
taking it all the way back. And then a friend of mine, Tony Sam, who is our guest today, was a marine biologist. Like now he's a very, very funny comic, very talented producer and writer. He's done a bunch of stuff, but I don't meet many marine biologists
Right.
in my field,
Yeah, It's definitely a niche.
If any marine biologist has ever come to see me do comedy, they've never hung out afterwards and said, "Hey, I'm a marine biologist." Like I wouldn't know. So like to meet Tony and to hear him talk about the ocean and honestly, we talk a lot about scuba diving in our interview, but that's because he goes scuba diving a lot. He's
Right.
in the ocean all the time. He's an interesting cat, man. I think it's a good interview. I was happy with it.
Definitely. I mean, just the acronyms and the words he's using, and it's just like molecular biology, all these different types of things he knows,
Dude,
and for us morons are going like, what? Like you?
that's just it. It's like,
right. It's
and also his patience, just explaining things to someone like me. Because again, I'm not smart. Just because I like something doesn't mean I understand it completely.
Right. Yeah.
But this was fun, and I think we'll just get right into it because I don't have any more real facts about the ocean that most people don't know, except for the Mariana Trench is supposed to be the deepest part of the ocean, 35,814 feet below sea level. So stand on the shore of the ocean, Pacific, Atlantic, whatever, and then imagine going 35,814 feet below that. Like that's deep.
Like
that's
the Mount
deep.
Everest is 29,000.
Yeah, you could tip Mount Everest upside down,
It's still
put it
deeper.
level with the ocean, and the peak would not touch the ground.
Yeah, that's utterly insane.
Thank you for having that fact because that's a really great way. Like if you've seen Mount Everest, okay, now imagine tipping it over and shoving it in the water, and the water wouldn't even be displaced.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Some people in Malibu and Santa Monica may have some floods.
Sure,
flooding,
they might have to move. Yeah.
Once it's in the water, hey, you're not seeing Mount Everest anymore.
No, that's it. That's what I should say, that the water will be displaced because it's a solid mass going in. But
you've gone into a tub,
Yeah. You've sat in a hot tub. You get it. You get what I'm going at. And also, I don't know. I watch Shark Week too, man. That's like,
oh, of course.
My love of the ocean, I think, stems from being so scared of it and because of Jaws and all that. And I think Shark Week is just so fascinating because that was the first time I saw on TV people going, don't be scared. You always read that like sharks aren't after you. These people give you visual examples of that, So I love Discovery. I love Shark Week. Again, the ocean is fascinating. So I hope you enjoy our talk with Tony Sam, comedian and marine biologist. My guest today, Tony Sam, stand-up comedian, has an album, Scaredy Cat, available online right now. Producer and a writer too. That's kind of how he makes his ends meet these days. Most recently, you've probably seen him on his Discovery Channel show with Josh Gates, which is called, what was it called? Josh Gates Tonight?
Josh Gates Tonight.
Where he played such characters as a shark. And before that, supervising producer on Jay Leno's Garage. But before comedy, before Tony Sam decided that he was going to take his talents to Hollywood, he was a marine biologist.
Yeah, baby.
Okay, I said that with a question mark because I didn't know.
No, honestly, every time hello, everybody, by the way. And hello, John.
Hi, buddy. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first time. So I grew up in Chicago, and as you know, you grew up there as well. I was a huge fan of the Shed Aquarium. I loved it. I begged to go there all the time.
Okay. I'm an idiot because in my head I'm like, man, that's a big jump from Chicago to marine biology, and then you say Shed Aquarium. I'm like, oh yeah, we were all exposed to the Shed Aquarium, field trips. Like
Chicago of course has world-class museums. We've got the Field Museum, Museum of Science and Industry, the Adler Planetarium. They're all right there pretty much. They've called it Museum Campus now, but there was a time where Lakeshore Drive split around it, if you remember that. Like now it's all separated, but I remember going to all those museums when the Lakeshore Drive, and anyone not from Chicago, this probably means nothing, but the Lakeshore Drive split around the Field Museum, and you had to walk under Lakeshore Drive to get to the planetarium and the Shed Aquarium. So
I vaguely remember something like that. Yeah.
I've been going to the Shed Aquarium my whole life, and I just, in the Midwest, you're like, it's so exotic because, you've got the lake there, and there's really a lot of uninteresting fish in Lake Michigan, but the ocean brought to, such an inland space, you're like, wow. And then when I was I believe it was the beginning of when I started high school, they added the Oceanarium, which it took a long time to get built, but that's when they had the beluga whales. They had the not the bottlenose dolphins. I think it's the Pacific porpoises, the smaller ones. And they have the sea otters, all that stuff. They added this whole section. So I would go there all the time, and I would sneak up to the back window that faced the lake. And I would just glare in the window, and I would watch the dolphins swim back and forth, and then I could see the beluga whales. But they always had security patrol the area, and I guess back in the 90s, security was a little lax, so you could sneak up to a museum and stare into the window and watch all the animals in the dark. But I would sit up there with my high school girlfriend, and we would just sit there and probably drink a 6-pack and watch the dolphins. And then I just was fascinated by it. And so in high school, I applied to go to school at the University of Miami, the School of Marine Sciences, and I got accepted.
Your eyes got big when you said that. Was there something in you at the time that was like, there's no way I'm getting in? Was this like, filled out the thing, sent it in, and you're like, yeah, fingers crossed?
I knew that we couldn't afford it. And so it was just basically like, yeah, you're not going here. You could have. You got in. So I applied to a lot of schools, and I was like, well, at least I know I could have got in. Like, we didn't have the money to go to a lot of good schools. I applied to quite a few, big ones. And that was like my dream school. And I told my mom, I was like, I got in, and she's like, well, about that. We don't have a lot of money, so I don't think it's going to happen. And financial aid really wouldn't help because it was like out of state tuition. And
dude,
at the time, that would have been like 30 grand a year, which that was more than my parents made probably combined.
Oh yeah. I mean, what a horrible, like, your mom didn't feel good about that. Like no parent feels good when they're like, oh, my kid could go on and do this thing, but I can't pay for it. Like, it just seems like that's heartbreaking, but
yeah. Sorry. And I had a girlfriend who convinced me that, because I was very artistic at the time too. So I was doing a lot of art classes. I loved the marine sciences. I was like top of my class in high school when I graduated. I think I was ranked like 13 out of 400 and something.
Jesus.
And so, I didn't know what I wanted to do though. I knew that I loved the ocean and that was something I'd always toyed with, but I also loved art. So I went to community college because I had a free scholarship there. So I was like, well, I might as well take this. And then I followed a girl out to Northern Illinois University, which was stupid.
Always a bad move.
A lot of my bad choices in life involve a female.
Sure.
I followed her out there. She said, come out here. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do out there because nothing really of interest that Northern Illinois University had that I could really do. So I was like, I studied, I think, pre-dentistry. I did business. I did
pre-dentistry. Whoa.
Poli-sci. I don't know. She wanted someone who make a lot of money. And which is funny because the fact that I did pre-dentistry also was like when I was a kid, I was given a choice. It was glasses or braces. And I took the glasses.
Maybe you were hoping you could do your own work, but you got pre-dentistry.
Right.
Fix this myself.
I can solve my own problem.
But did the smarts come naturally to you when top of your class, that kind of shit? Like was it easy for you to like, because you're talking about doing things that like I can see like, oh yeah, sitting on a thing that you weren't supposed to sit on, watching dolphins, drinking beers. Like, okay, that's I could do that in high school. And then you're like, and then on the top of my class, I'm like, nah, you lost me.
It just, I don't know. School always came easy, but I just, we grew up at a time, and I guess it doesn't really change, but like, I was embarrassed to be good at school. I felt like I couldn't relate to anybody else because like, homework, I liked doing it, and I liked taking tests. And I was
an animal, dude. You're an animal.
So, but my girlfriend, she was a little, she liked to party probably more than me, and I feel like that's always been the case. Is like I've had to have someone pull me out of a shell to have more fun, and so like. I wasn't a really big partier in high school. I don't think I've ever really been a big partier, but I just loved reading about the ocean, reading about science, but I'm very right and left brain because I'm very artistic, but also I love science and learning about this stuff. So from Northern, my mom decided to move to Florida. So she had moved there when my parents got divorced, and she lived there long enough after I'd gone to Northern for a couple years where I could go to Florida and I could get in-state tuition.
There you go.
At a Florida school. So I was like, well, this is my chance. So I went to a school called Florida Atlantic University, and I finally put my major as marine biology. And I did a double degree where I have a marine and a molecular biology degree.
Molecular biology. Just pretend I'm an idiot.
I don't know if I can do that.
And explain to me what molecular biology is.
That is where essentially it's kind of a broad topic, but it involves a lot of things. But essentially, molecular biology is biology, obviously on a very micro scale, where you are creating, helping forge artificial chromosomes and, gene splicing. And,
right. So like stem cell research would be fall under
that falls under molecular biology.
Okay.
Cool. So cellular genetics, all that stuff. So you can focus further in past molecular. So then you pick your topic. All that stuff fascinated me. So when I was in Illinois, I took genetics, I took virology, I took microbiology, I took biochem, all that stuff. And it was just fascinating to me. A lot of it was hard. The books were like this fucking thick.
Yeah, $700 a book.
That's how they get you. Because the book's very cool. They look awesome. The pictures, the cover of the book is cool. They're like, hey, come on down. Everything's going to be great.
It's just fun pictures underwater.
But the reality I found out once I, was doing science after I graduated and everything, it's very monotonous lab work. So I figured that obviously wasn't for me. But before I got into all the lab stuff in Florida, that's where I got to really fall in love with the ocean, because this Chicago boy, I started going to a school where there's palm trees, and it's an outdoor campus in Boca Raton, just north of Fort Lauderdale. And I was just like this fish out of water, so to speak. I was like, this is all so foreign to me. Like, everything just blew my mind, because I had this really narrow world view. Everything I knew was about Chicago. I'd never really gone anywhere until I went to Florida, and I felt like I just was just like walking around like this the whole time with my mouth open, because the beach was a mile from the campus, or maybe half a mile, even less. And that's why I started scuba diving. I started taking all these marine biology classes. For a weekend, just to have fun, I would just go walk into the ocean. I would do shore dives all the time. So
shore dives, just snorkeling, or just going?
Scuba. We'd scrap on all the stuff, and we'd walk right in on Fort Lauderdale Beach. Me and my good buddy Steve and this guy Carl, who was his roommate. We were like the three amigos. We would go scuba diving every other weekend, and we all owned our own equipment, so we could just go for we'd rent the tank for $10. So we would just go all the time. And
were you certified in Chicago?
No, you
got certified there.
Yeah, a lot of old timers and people from Chicago like to brag about how they got certified in a rock quarry, which that's what they still do. Usually, I forget where the rock quarry is in Illinois, but I want to say it's out probably by what's the name of that big mall? Mills, something McGurney Mills.
Oh, Gurney. It's up that way. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere outside of the city, but the water there is like 54 degrees, like all the time.
Wow.
And it's
obviously deep. I mean, it has to be deep enough. You have to be able to
deep and murky and cold and awful. So I got certified in like 82 degree water that was crystal clear. I remember to this day the first dive we took, and it was like flat as glass. The ocean, we walked in off of Pompano Beach, but I think it was around November, because I got certified around my birthday in 1998. November 1998. I've been diving for like 23 years now?
Damn, dude.
So the water was just crystal clear, like flat as glass, but it was jellyfish season, the marine jellies. So there were a bunch of jellies just floating around everywhere. So we walk in the water, and the instructor's like, everybody you're fine. If one comes near you, just take your finger, push them on top, and push them away, because there's no stinging cells on the
top.
Yeah, on I think I forget what it's called. You'll have to forgive me. It's like Aurelia, which is like the dome. But if you push on that, you can't get stung. So the whole time I'm like waiting to do my skills for the instructor, and I take my finger and I'm just like just pushing them away because they're everywhere. And I'm just looking around me, just afraid that one's going to come on me. And the guy next to me, I see one come like kind of, slowly, and it just rests right on his neck, and it just lays the tentacle right across his neck. And when he got out of the water, because he freaks out and he like pushes it away.
And it's done.
And we weren't in that deep of water. We probably just went out just a little bit, so we were like 10, 15 feet just to do skills. when we got back on shore, like he had this giant welt across his whole neck. And I was just like, that's why I didn't want to do this.
Did it? I mean, so he got stung, right? Like, I mean,
he did. Him and some other lady too. She got across the leg. I get cold very easily, which is it's natural. Everybody gets cold underwater in different ways, but a lot of people wore shorties, which are where it's the cutoff, where it's half sleeves and it's exposed past the knee. But I always wear a full wetsuit just because also I don't want to get stung. So a lot of people who wore the shorties, they got stung all over the place.
Can they not sting through a wetsuit?
No, the pneumatophores, which is the stinging cell of a jelly.
Use just one big word. Hey, I'm a doctor, everybody.
They can't pierce through it. I mean, and it's really crazy. If you look at a close-up, really like microscopic view of these cells, it's like a hooked barbel.
I was going to say, it looks like a fishing hook kind of with a thing that if it can get into your skin, my guess is it can go through fabric or...
Yeah, but generally speaking, like if they have exposure suits, which is very like needed for like the Great Barrier Reef. There's generally always something that will sting or kill you in the Great Barrier Reef. So, it's basically a hood with a very thin kind of lycra that apparently the stinging cells are only triggered by soft tissue. They generally won't pierce those or cause those to fire. Like if it brushes up against that material for whatever reason, it just won't fire.
It'd be like, because it knows it's like useless. It'd be like if it rubbed up against a rock. Like, well, don't try to sting the rock because you just
So it's very strange, but
evolution. I mean, that's such a fine, unique thing of evolution. Like that, however that thing came up, and then now it can do this thing where it protects itself and knows when to protect itself and knows when not to.
I'm fascinated just by like even just now with COVID and everything, like how like animals and the human body are able to adapt and the fact that this vaccine that they've made now, how it they've cloned the mRNA sequences and how our body can read that and knows that I can now replicate the antibody to that with everything I have in my body already. It just, if you sit and think about all the things that animals can just do naturally, it'll blow your goddamn mind.
I mean, the whole thing is mind blowing when you think about, ocean. The ocean is where all life came from. Like
soup
crawled right out of there. Soup. It's like, it's life soup. And the fact that now, something crawled out of the ocean and now I can go tick, 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 tick. Hey, Tony, want to do a podcast? We're going to talk about the ocean. Like, it's fucking crazy to me. You know what I mean?
I think that is the purpose of the ocean to talk about.
Was to make podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That was why it was created. But I'm an idiot. Like I know I'm not smart enough to be a scientist or a doctor or anything like that. But the ocean fascinates me. The fact
you are, John. You just have to apply yourself.
There you go. I won't. I refuse to apply myself. So I know I won't ever become them. But I'm fascinated with outer space, and I'm fascinated with the ocean. The ocean is 90% unexplored. 80% unexplored.
It's crazy that we know more about space than the deepest parts of our ocean, which are at some places like 33,000 feet.
Yeah, and we can't get people down there because they'd be crushed, and most equipment can't get down there because it either gets too dark or the pressure is too much. My question, or something I was thinking about, I watch a lot of the International Space Station stuff where it's up there and the people go up and they live and they got cameras on everything. You can watch spacewalks. And I know they train underwater. Astronauts train underwater in those suits because it's like you're moving in space. Why not build some kind of a space station underwater that can like withstand the pressure that people could travel down to live and do research.
Well, I don't know if you've seen Deep Blue Sea or Leviathan.
I've seen Jaws 3.
Abyss.
I've seen Jaws 3. Yeah. So
you see what happens if we do that.
Now, honestly, movies are a big. Movies have caused the fascination and the fear of the ocean to grow.
Yeah, obviously. Peter Benchley regrets. He's said multiple times he regretted Jaws.
Because he loves sharks. He loves sharks. Yeah. But Jaws I saw when I was like 6 or 7, and I shit my pants, dude. Like, I didn't want to get on a boat in a lake for a long time. I was like, nah, I don't need water. But then it's silly. I follow, my Instagram is almost all Save Sharks feeds, right? It's all like people swimming and diving with sharks and putting their hands near them. And I'm like, oh, look at that. Okay, they're just, it's a nice animal.
What character do you think you would be in the Jaws film?
I'm Roy Scheider. I'm the guy who doesn't want to be out there. I'm like, what are we doing out here? We can't be in a boat fucking hunting sharks. It's crazy. Like,
Chief.
Dude, I wouldn't want to be the chief, but I couldn't be Quint. I'm not some hard ass who's like, let's get him. Like, he can't go down with 3 barrels. Not with 3 barrels, he can't. Like
25.
You're Dreyfus, right? Because you know all the fucking.
You want to see a scar? Well, that's no scar. I'm Richard Dreyfus.
Dude, that scene is awesome, though.
Moray eel.
Dude.
I got that beat.
Let's just reenact the movie scene by scene.
It was I think it was the 40th anniversary this past year.
Of Jaws? Really?
Yeah, 40th or 45th.
Yeah, 75, right? Or no, when did that movie come out? 77?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the 45th. The undertaking of making that movie is incredible. Like, they're so over budget and everything. But
27-year-old director with a fake shark that kept sinking to the bottom of the lake.
Bruce. I still think that, it is right to be. I think it's smart to be fearful, but also respectful, but like a respectful fear, right? Like,
not scared. You don't want to go near it, but understand that you're a visitor.
Yeah, for sure. So I went to the Great Barrier Reef for the first time in 2017 now.
Oh, recently.
So, and I'd been wanting to go my whole life. I actually had planned to go once I graduated with my marine biology. It was my dream to go, but for whatever reason, for money or jobs, it didn't happen. So when I finally had the chance to be able to do it many years later, 20 some years later, I was like, of course, it was for my 40th birthday. That was it. So it was actually 2016. It was the year the world fell apart. It was the Cubs win the World Series, which was great. And then the election happens. And then I went to the Great Barrier Reef and
literally was setting up to be my niece was born in July of that year. I got married in October. The Cubs win the World Series early November. Everything is looking up. And then here we are.
Yeah. Well, the story is, I meant to say that because there was a museum we went to, or it was like on Manly Beach in Sydney. They had this aquarium there that was, naturally fed from the ocean, open system. And cool. They had this, they had these jaws from different sharks. And it was to show you that most sharks have very small mouths and they don't eat things as big as people. So you shouldn't be afraid of them. They're not, if they do bite you, it's only because they were afraid or spooked.
Or curious. But even then it's like, once they get a taste, they're not going to keep biting you.
No, generally speaking, no, except the only 3 sharks to worry about in general are bull sharks.
Yeah, they're a pain in the ass.
Tiger sharks and great whites.
Huge.
So they that's their space, man.
And more than likely, in the Great Barrier Reef, especially, more bull sharks or tiger sharks.
I would say more tiger sharks. There's more great whites on the southeast coast of Australia, as the water gets colder. Generally speaking, great whites like colder water, so that's why they cruise past the California coast all the time.
Yeah.
I went on a dive off of Redondo Beach, which is just south of LA, and it was very early morning. It was in one of those eerily calm days. Again, water like glass, very flat, very marine layer foggy. It just was one of those days. It just seemed eerie. And there's this thing off the coast called the Redondo Barge. It sits in about 120 feet of water. And so I went with this group of advanced divers. I'm a dive master, so I generally I don't have a problem going to deeper depths or more.
When you say dive master, you can certify people, you can teach them. Is that?
No, it is like it is a professional rating, but it's like the kind of like the assistant to instructors. I just didn't want to pay to it. I learned everything that an instructor can do, except how I didn't pay another.
You can get the certificate to tell everyone you can teach or whatever.
$3,000 to do that, and I maybe someday, but I just didn't want to. So we go on this dive and we come up, and as I'm climbing up the ladder, I look off to my left and I see this giant dorsal fin just cruise on by and then slowly dip under the water. And that was after our first dive because we were going to go in again. And I said to everybody, I said, did you just see that? Did anybody just see that giant fin? And, what's that?
Had they seen it?
Nobody saw it but me. And so then I was just like, oh my God, because I know for a fact I saw it. Like that, like burned in my brain, just this slow, like,
Dude, fuck that.
Like he was going down to come back around and finish.
I like you said slows down. He's like cruising. He's like, hey, what's that over there? And he like sees legs and he's just like slowing it down.
Like, well, the fact that he was at the surface and then he went under was like, oh God. So I was like, hey, let's all chill out here for a minute. Maybe he's gone or whatever. But luckily we didn't encounter that shark again. But that was a big dorsal fin too. I knew for a fact that had to be a great white. And it wasn't a pod of, dolphins off the coast.
You would know at this stage of your education, you know the difference between a dolphin dorsal, a fucking great white. Like you'd be able to look at that and
go, because when porpoises and dolphins breach, it's always like this.
Yeah, they don't like this. Yeah.
It's a very eerie thing to see it just glide through. So that was probably the only time I want to definitely do one of the shark cage dives off of it's the Guadalupe Island in Mexico. It's probably the best place to go dive with great whites because you can almost guarantee that they'll always be there. Like there's great white dives off the coast of South Africa, down by, I believe it's the Cape of Good Hope. Is that Cape Horn? I always get them confused. South America and South Africa. It's Cape Horn.
Horn is South Africa?
Yeah, it's down by Johannesburg, just
kind
of where my octopus teacher was.
Oh, I didn't watch that, but yes, yeah.
You should. It's the best.
Okay, I will.
It's probably one of the best things I watched all year last year. It's this guy who is a filmmaker who. It seems like he's a very talented filmmaker, but he basically filmed himself. He was having like a midlife crisis, and he wanted to just do something that wasn't make films, and so he ended up making a film, as filmmakers do. But he documented this octopus that he encountered down below, off near where he lived. He would just go walk into the ocean, very rocky intertidal shore kind of environment there, and he just over the course of like a year just filmed every encounter with this octopus, and he became like friends. Like the octopus recognized him as it got bigger and grew, and it's incredible. It's incredible. You got to watch it. It's just well shot, well done, and it's beautiful. But like that is also where great whites are all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I've seen sharks a lot in the water, but they've been little ones. You know, like when I went to Australia.
Yeah, I interrupted you when you were talking about going to the Great Barrier Reef for the first time.
Oh no, that was to get to the shark but also, you know, the first dive I did in Australia was a dusk dive, which I hadn't done a night dive in a long time. I actually lived in Grand Cayman for a year, and I did a lot of dives in the Cayman Islands, and we would go night diving all the time because
wait, look, okay, I don't know a lot. But I know enough that sharks attack in 3 feet of water. You shouldn't go swimming at night. And why you're going all the way under? Like the last night dive I saw was when they went to find Ben Gardner's boat on Jaws, and they found a dead body. Like what is the benefit or the mindset of going down there at night?
Well, to show you my naivety at the time. So this is probably around 2000. I was given the opportunity to go to Grand Cayman to run an aquarium down in Georgetown, which is the capital of Grand Cayman, or the Cayman Islands, rather. It's on Grand Cayman.
So in 2000, you're offered the opportunity to go run an aquarium at the Grand Cayman Islands.
Yeah, so it was a 30,000 gallon shark tank and a 6,000 gallon just reef tank. And so I was hired to just run those aquariums. And, you know, that was incredible for me because I got to not only live and dive in one of the world's greatest scuba dive destinations, but like, you know, what a cool job. I got to stop.
But you didn't have to work a shitty job to be able to do that. Your job
that's right.
also allowed you to be around. Yeah.
So there I created from nothing. I created a sea turtle exhibit by myself. I designed it and I helped construct it because there's a sea turtle farm on Grand Cayman that I had partnered with the director of that sea turtle farm, and they essentially let me use several sea turtles, green sea turtles, they're generally accepted as the most, them and the Ridley turtles. The green ones, they're endangered. They're not doing as good as like, your other species. But anyway, so I was given a few of the turtles. I created this exhibit. I painted an entire underwater mural on the front of it. And it was great. Like it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I got to do that at like 20, 22, 23. I was just living down there, and it was great. Like I had no designs on ever doing comedy at that point. Like it hadn't crossed my mind. I'd always thought about comedy in high school. My buddy and I were going to do Second City, but we didn't. And so I went off and did my marine science life, and I was just down there, just a million miles away from everywhere, just living a crazy life that seems like it's lifetimes ago.
I was going to say, man, that's such a different, like even from being in college in Florida, you know, that's such a different, like the Cayman Islands sounds like places that people think about going to live forever. You know what I mean? Like, man, I wish I could retire and get a house in the Cayman Islands and I'd just have my own beach or whatever, you know, and you were given an opportunity to kind of not only be down there, but work doing the thing you loved in the place that was the best for it.
Yeah. I mean, it was an experience of a lifetime. I have to say, like, I think about, I haven't been back actually since.
Is that exhibit still there, you think?
No, I think that the mall that it was in, they decided to call the place Aqua World, which I was against. calling it that, because I was like, really? Okay, sure, whatever. It's your money.
Yeah.
I actually, I would love to see what is there now, because it was a very expensive undertaking to get that. Like, it had to be designed at MIT because the aquarium was on the second floor. And as you know, 30,000 gallons of water is an incredible amount of weight. So a gallon of water, seawater, we'll say roughly is about 8 pounds. So times 30,000. That's, I want to say that they had to reinforce the floor to support something around like 200 tons. And so the stand, this thing sat on a stand also that elevated it, I think 2.5, 3 feet off the ground. And a lot of the plumbing works was underneath. And sometimes I had to go in there. And I was always afraid, like, I was like, well, this is it. If
that gives, you're done.
Right. Or the floor itself. Like, I was like, I sure hope this floor holds this thing up, because the first floor will have a lovely aquarium in it.
Yeah, dude. Oh, man.
It doesn't, but it was incredible. Like, I put black tips in there. I had bonnet head hammerheads.
I know what a hammerhead is. What's a bonnet head hammerhead?
Bonnet head is kind of, their head looks like this, whereas the hammerhead's more out like this. It's still a hammerhead, but it's much smaller, and it looks kind of like that. And they only get about 4 feet, 4.5, 5 feet max. So I had nurse sharks, black tips, bonnet heads. We caught a green moray eel we stuck in there that I called Oscar. And so I would go on every day and I would feed the fish. I would go up on top. I had a headset. I set up a speaker system, and I would tell everybody about what was in the tank. And
people visiting, like people walking.
Yeah, when the mall finally opened, I was able to do it. You can't really see anymore, but I did get bit by one of the, I don't know if you can see. You see the scar right above my nail?
Yeah, a little white
nurse shark that bit me on the finger while I was feeding him, because I turned my head away for a fucking second.
While you were in the process of feeding?
Yeah, I was feeding the sharks, and this one came up, and and you saw me go, yow! And it echoed through the whole mall because I had the loudspeaker on. And then you just suddenly start seeing blood drop into the water, and the tank's going crazy.
As soon as it's one drop of blood, and they can tell.
Yeah, well, because I was feeding them squid, but then they got that blood, and they're all going nuts. They are all going crazy. And so I'm like, well, guys, we're going to take a short break. And so, like,
waving your bloody finger around, like
my finger, it just would not stop bleeding, because they, as you know, have many rows of teeth. And
sharp.
Luckily, it was a nurse shark, because if it was probably one of the black tips, it probably would have taken my finger off. But
yeah, because nurse sharks, their teeth aren't next to each other; they're kind of spaced out, right?
Their rows are a lot further apart than say other sharks, but not too far, because that I remember specifically, like, this is the scar I have on my finger, but luckily that was the furthest it had gone in that shark's mouth, because the other teeth marks had gone across my fingernail. So there were like three or four rows that just caught the fingernail, which the fingernail thankfully saved me, but like, it was bleeding like crazy.
Yeah.
I gotta clean this out.
What do you do to the tank then? You can't clean blood out of a.
No. I mean, it wasn't that much blood. Like, it was as much as like if I had fed them, like when I would feed them the squid, it would get a little cloudy, and then the filtration system would take it out. But they'd always go nuts. The nurse sharks especially would go just crazy with feeding time, like almost like doing barrel rolls, and just everyone was always fighting to get the food. It was, except Oscar, who I would just stick the food right in front of him, and he'd come out of his hole and he'd take it and he'd go back. He was like so soft too. If you ever get the chance to feel a moray eel, they're just very soft. Very
Sorry,
soft.
I thought you weren't supposed to touch moray eels.
No, you can touch them. A green moray.
What are the eels that electrocute you?
Electric eels?
So they're not; those aren't moray eels. They're not.
No. I think those are freshwater species too. Those electric eels. Those are the ones that in the rivers. They'll like a horse will be drinking, and he'll just kill the horse because they touch it. But not in the. There's an electric ray. I know that.
Well, that's a different. But that's like
it also might be a freshwater. I'd have to double check, but I can't think of any.
So that's why when I see scuba divers touching eels, they're like, "Oh yeah, we're just."
No, there's a great video. If you want to see a great video of a guy being overly cocky and familiar with an eel, he's feeding. There's this video. Just look up "scuba diver loses finger." It's really great. So this guy's. It's an old video, but this guy was feeding hot dogs. Like he was an instructor or a tour guide, and he had a group with him, and he coaxed this large eel out, and the thing's just like swimming around him, and he's petting it and this and that, and he's fumbling with this bag of hot dogs. And so he sticks his hand in the hot dogs, but he turns his head away, as I learned you shouldn't
just
do.
like you did, yeah.
And the moray eel just latches onto his thumb, and you hear it in the video. You hear it, like you hear it. He rips his thumb off from the
I thought it was a hot dog, dude.
Yeah. So this guy ended up getting his big toe put on his hand.
I'm sorry. Are you serious?
I mean, I guess he thought, well, it's better to have a toe thumb than to have two toes.
What are you talking?
One thumb. And it looks really weird because I don't even know if the guy's still alive anymore, but it looks like a toe, and it works. They were able to graft his toe where his thumb would be, so it looks like he's got all his digits.
I don't know. What do you think is weirder, if you meet a guy with no thumb on one hand, or if you meet a guy who has a big toe for a thumb on one hand?
That's right. I think I would have been okay, I guess.
When I think about how much you use your thumbs, like it gets a little bit like, fuck, dude, maybe I get that. But like with the big toe on your foot, how are you balancing? How are you walking?
That's a good question. I mean,
I got to think that throws you off your game unless you never go on land and he's
right. I would think that it'd be better to have both of my toes, my big toes,
just to walk and keep your balance, and you can figure out with your fingers how to overcompensate for your thumb.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry. It's weird. You just hold someone waves at you and they got a big thumb.
This guy, he always has two thumbs, and he's like, "Well, that's who I am. That's my lifestyle. You think I'm giving that up? You're goddamn out of your mind."
Dude, I give a lot of thumbs up signs. This is going to be an issue if I can't get my toe put on.
That's my move.
I'm the thumb guy. That's fucking insane, man. That's insane.
I know. You should look it up. It's a crazy video. It's been on there forever.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Do you take people scuba diving who have never been, or?
Well, there's a liability thing. Like if you haven't been in a long time, I can refer.
Right.
But like in a swimming pool, technically I could show you in a swimming pool as long as there's, others around. I could just guide you through, but like I can't take you out into the open ocean. Like I could show you in the pool, but liability wise, I couldn't take you out to the open ocean. But I think it's important, if you've never gone scuba diving, to go to a swimming pool, because what I noticed in my dive master instruction was I would assist all the classes, like certification classes. I would kind of be the second, like the first mate of the dive instructor. And the one thing that always threw people off is removing your mask underwater.
That was putting it back on.
Cause people, we'd be just in like 3 feet of water. They took it off and they just flip out. Or removing your regulator, because lots of things can happen, and basically instructions to show you all the things that can happen so you can not freak out about it. So you're supposed to take your regulator out and recover it and put it back in your mouth. Remove your mask in case your mask just floods or some idiot kicks it off your face. which I've seen happen a million times. But like, you have to see whether you can, or just claustrophobia. Some people find out.
Dude, that's the weirdest thing is like the claustrophobia when you're in like an open ocean. You know what I mean? Like there's that feeling. I don't think I've only gone underwater with somebody else having a scuba tank in a lake in Wisconsin, and it was somebody's dad who was a fucking asshole. And
perfect scenario.
Yeah. So we go under and he's like, all right, I'm going to take it out and then I'll put it in your mouth and you can breathe underwater, you know? And I was like, and I went under, we did that one. I was like, I don't like this. I didn't like the idea of sharing the thing. And like, I didn't like, I felt claustrophobic. That's what it was. It's like, it felt, even though there was nothing, I felt like everything was tight. I don't know.
Well, you were certainly setting yourself up to become a news story.
Yeah. Man and child found at bottom of Wisconsin lake.
Yeah. He's probably had a few beers in him. He's like, yeah, I'll show you. Come on. Yeah. Hey, keep an eye on the brats. I'm showing Johnny how to breathe underwater.
There was, dude, believe me, there was a lot of that, but I just didn't like it, man. I watch scuba videos and I see again, Instagram, people underwater. I'm like, man, that looks. And when I hear about like Jerry Garcia, like towards later, like the end of his life, scuba diving was how he found kind of like how to be active. You know what I mean? And he really loved it. And it's something like, it's like surfing. Like I wish I enjoyed or was brought up with the ocean, but I wasn't. It's like a thing that was foreign to me growing up. And then when I finally got to it, I was like, yeah, I'm okay on land, you know?
I just, I did it. I fell in love with it. I am most happy. I found out, and I was at one point, I told a therapist about it. I was like, I don't know what it is, but I am my happiest and my most content when I am, 70 feet underwater and I am flying and it's quiet. And, sometimes I go down there, I'll just close my eyes and, I just feel like the ocean is hugging. I don't know. It's weird. It's hugging me. And like, you feel it, it's all around you. You're in this huge vastness that you're so small but it's this completely different world, and the real world, everything that exists, it's a million miles away and
unimportant. Yeah. I said, and unimportant.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, I've gone a few hundred times, and I just, like every time I do it, it's like, get excited to do it. I've always, even though I've done it so many times, I'm always a little nervous just getting all my gear and everything together, just because I know there's risk involved to every sport, and you have to stay in shape because it is especially like if you do shore dives, you have about, with the tank and all your weights, you could have like 75 pounds on your back, and you got to truck your ass down like 100 yards down to the ocean and then swim out. And it's taxing. A lot of people I can see getting a heart attack doing that.
Yeah. I like how you try to, like you said, there's a risk as with any sport. And like the risk with most sports is, oh man, I broke my leg, or I twisted an ankle, or I'm done because I blew out my knee. Or you're talking about a risk of like, yes, heart attack from the gear because it's heavy, but also like stingrays and sharks and, the kind of like,
I don't think you have to worry about those things, because that generally speaking, you're not going to be bothered by anything. I think that's part of that unfounded fear, but like you have to be careful. Like I think you're more likely to stick your hand on a crevice through a sea urchin, which I can tell you is not pleasant. That all those barbed spines, that happens to divers all the time, because one, you shouldn't be reaching with your full hands under crevices, generally the urchins are, but that goes through neoprene really easy, and it goes through skin really easy, but they're barbed, so you can't pull them out. You have to nip them off and let them be dissolved by, your body. You've got a foreign body in there, or they have to be surgically removed.
Oh, let them dissolve in your body?
What's that?
You said let them dissolve in your body?
Yeah, like, when you get some foreign thing in your body and your body
becomes part of it,
breaks it down. I mean, I think they actually have to, if you want them removed, they have to surgically do it. But like there's that, or if you're not watching, which is I always tell you, if you're on a reef, just you touch with one finger. So, you're not putting your hand on a scorpion fish or something where the dorsal spine of the fish is poisonous. So, you don't sit on the reef, you hover above it. You have to learn proper buoyancy. And it's just, it is a sport. Like I said, you have to learn how to do it. And most people, they do it so infrequently. They're down there, they're kicking things over. They're kicking coral with their fins and running into each other. They're kicking you. And I don't like to go on a lot of charter boats with a lot of other people because I know their skill level is low, and it kills me to see that happen.
Yeah, I guess it just seems like because they're underwater, everybody should be more graceful. It should be, because when I think about being underwater, it's like, oh yeah, it's smooth. Your movements are fluid. But you're right. You get underwater, you start to panic, or you haven't done it in a while, and you're kind of probably spastic, and you're all over the place. Like
it is. You're mentally thinking, well, I need to use my hands all the time. So I need to, but the truth is you don't need to really use your hands ever. You're manipulating your movement with your fins, and it should be very fluid, but new divers are spazzing out all over the place, and they're breathing heavy. So they're blowing through their air tank, and it's very stressful to be with new divers. I will say.
I bet.
So that's the other reason I don't think the instruction thing's for me, because that kind of responsibility of, as I was out with, a group of 8 divers, the instructor's in the lead, I take the rear to make sure we don't lose anybody. But like, you don't want anyone to just jet up from 30 feet below to the surface. Before I got my dive master training, I hadn't been diving for a little while. I think it was before I even got my rescue. It was when I first moved to California, and I was like, well, shit, I can scuba dive again. Because in Chicago, I kind of had stopped after I'd been going for so long in Florida and in Grand Cayman, and I went to Belize and Venezuela. I'd done all that before I moved back to Chicago. So then I stopped, and I'd always missed it. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of money because I was trying to do comedy and whatever. And so when I finally got out here, I was like, well, I still have my own stuff, and I could go all the time. So I went and I got a dive buddy. I found some guy out here who wanted to get into scuba diving. He got certified. And so we went out to Catalina, and, we jump into the water, and it turned out my BC, I hadn't used it in a while, and it just starts auto-inflating.
Your BC is your breathing control.
So it's like a vest. It's the buoyancy compensator.
Buoyancy compensator. Thank you.
So you can, when they first were certifying people, they didn't have any of that stuff. They just had their weights, and they had to use their breathing to check their buoyancy. But now you can regulate, you can fill or let out air to just check your buoyancy in the water. So I jump in, and I get down to 30 feet, and all of a sudden I start floating up, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I can't stop. So I grab onto a kelp, this large piece of kelp, and it is just pulling me up. I just keep going up and up, and I'm like, oh, well, this is it. I guess I'm dying today.
Wait, why dying? Because going up too fast?
Well, because I was at 30 feet, and I was going up relatively quickly.
So you're talking about getting the bends and then...
Yeah, decompression sickness or an embolism. I was like, well, shit. Oh, God, I'm so scared. I was very shaken up because I literally walked myself up kind of like upside down. Like I'm like as I go up. And I get to the surface, and I said, I don't know what happened. And the hose, the auto-inflate hose, just had become stuck and just was like flowing air into it. And at the time, I didn't know what to do because it had been a while since I was diving, and I and I had kind of been rusty on my skills, but had I known, all I had to do is just pop that hose off. And then I would let out air, because I kept trying to let out air, and I just kept getting more full. So that's why I took the rescue class and the dive master class, because I was like, I never want this to ever happen again. So I just made sure I knew all the skills and the contingency plans and how to troubleshoot stuff like that. And I'd never been so scared in my life. I think that was the most scared I'd ever been, because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, at first I thought that was going to start as like a comedy story, like a comedic, like you're like, oh, the air took me back up, I couldn't get, but you're like, no, this can kill you. And there's this place called Dan, which is the Divers Alert Network, and most divers usually carry this dive insurance for travel or whatever. And so I called them up, because the only hyperbaric chambers which you need to fight decompression sickness, there's one in Catalina in the middle of the island. And then I think there's maybe one or two on shore, but just they're not easy to get to. And you have to do like 5-6 hours a day of this chamber to try to degas your blood if you do have decompression sickness. So I called them up and I explained what happened. And they're like, well, you weren't down there very long. You had just got down there. So the truth is there wasn't any, air bubbles in your blood yet, right? Or there wasn't any nitrogen outgassing in your system. Like, you literally just gone down there. And it's like, as long as you kept breathing out as you were going up and you didn't hold your breath, it's like, you're probably fine. And I was, but I still was freaked out. And that can catch up to you like days later, right?
Yeah, they said just watch your up to like 72 hours. So just watch yourself. If you have any joint pain, it usually affects you in your joints by the elbows, knees, fingers. And the more serious cases, like you can see it on the skin itself, like the bubbles are in your tissue.
Oh, dude.
So, but they told me I had nothing to worry about, but I was freaked out. And I'm glad I went back and I learned all those skills, because now I can also be there to help someone else too. If I ever saw that happening, I could quickly just run over and detach a hose or.
Yeah. And you dive with more confidence now, probably,
Yeah. I feel like I can do any scenario. I think part of always being safe is, it's the overconfidence that gets people in trouble, because just because I'm a dive master, if I've never dove in a certain area before, and there's a strong current, in Indonesia or the Philippines, there's some places where there's a current ripping through it 30, 40 miles an hour. And you have to sometimes bring this kind of stick to just dig into the reef to hold yourself in place. Otherwise they'll carry you along. Those are these crazy drift dives that, you're at the mercy of the current. So you're getting picked up like miles down the way. They're just following along at the surface, just looking at your dive flag to know where you are. When I got started, the Dive Master training book, it's just filled with these horrible scenarios.
Oh God, I bet.
All these disasters, and they usually end in death, and they try to troubleshoot what happened. And it was always because of either overconfidence or just ignoring these really simple safety instructions, just listening to your body, knowing that, I am scared. I can watch a diver get ready and I can see him, you can see them if they're very quiet. If someone's very quiet, it's because they're really scared. And, they can say they're confident, but you can read the signals of people and then you can help work them through that, which is beneficial to everybody on the dive. But
yeah, if everybody's comfortable, then everybody's comfortable. If one person is nervous or jumpy, it could throw everybody off and cause a lot of problems.
I mean, it is scary still for a lot of people. It's the ocean. It's the open ocean. Anything can happen, and you just have to respect it. But I mean, with that said, it's still beautiful. I every chance I get to go in it and just here is really cool in Southern California, because the seals off the coast, the harbor seals, they come and they'll swim around you. It's pretty neat. They love to play around. And the kelp forest it's creepy. It's scary, but it's beautiful. Just the way the sun ripples through the water and the kelps just slowly and majestically, hypnotically just flowing through. I see the beauty in both of these oceans because I did a lot of my diving in the Caribbean and in the Atlantic, but you just have to appreciate what each different ocean has to offer. I love it. I get always like just chills talking about it because I love it so much and I wish I could do it more.
Are you planning on going diving anytime soon?
I'd love to. I've wanted to go to Catalina for a long time. Right now with COVID, I didn't know if I wanted to be on a boat with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird time. Like if I had a private boat or something, that would be another story, but it seems like it's okay. I can wait for a little bit, but I'm jonesing to go out again for sure.
Yeah. Well, dude, this was fun, man. I know I feel like maybe I should have made the episode about scuba diving, but I don't.
Well, ask me an ocean question, and we'll make it.
Well, no, I mean, basically, I don't have like ocean question would be. I just wanted to. I think basically, again, because it fascinates me. And people like you who. It's like with anything that is like a little bit more extreme, like people who climb mountains. Like I'm fascinated by those people. Like it's something that I don't think I would ever do myself. But the fact that I've seen video, I've seen photographs. Scuba diving looks amazing, and to talk to somebody who's like, I'm fascinated by the ocean. You basically went in there and sort of lived in it. Does that make sense? So like that's why I wanted to talk to you because. It's not so much that I need you to give me science or science facts, but like, why you've explained why you like it. You go down there, it's quiet. You feel like the ocean is giving you a hug. Like these are the things you love about it. Plus you have a fearful respect or whatever you want to call it of your surroundings when you're down there. You're not just some asshole going around poking things with a fucking stick. You're you're down, dude, but they're out there. It's the same with any kind of hiking trail or like I'm there to hike and to enjoy what's there. There are people that will take a dump literally like right on the trail. You're like, oh, that's nice.
I know if I find garbage down on the reef or, out on the beach even, it upsets me so because I don't know, like why there's a trash can like 10 feet away. What are you doing?
What's wrong with your soul that you throw garbage on the fucking ground? Okay?
Right. Well, about the great garbage patch, right?
It's the size of Texas.
Yeah. It's just there. And what are you going to do? It's just going to keep getting bigger.
Eventually, people are going to live on it, dude. It's going to be a prison island.
Dry land exists.
It's not a myth. I've seen it.
I've seen it. Yeah, I feel blessed. I love everything about the ocean and, just my course of just learning it. It's nice to talk to somebody about it because I got to say it's a blessing and a curse. Like I love it so much, but there's generally nobody I can talk to it about because I don't know. Most people seem not interested. Like people would rather talk about music or movies, but honestly, I could talk about the ocean all day. But like I have all these fish books that I look through frequently, and I just love it. But I really have nobody to talk to about it.
That's interesting because you're even without the pandemic or whatever. Like you're right. You're in Hollywood. If you were going out every night, you'd be going out and seeing. Other comics and your buddies, and you'd be going to clubs or rooms that had shows or bars or whatever. And you're right. The talk would be music, movies, the entertainment industry, that kind of thing. And then for you to come along and go, hey, I want to talk about kelp.
Hey, did you guys scuba dive?
But I think it's fascinating. And the things, sometimes I'm amazed at the things people aren't interested in. I went home to visit my mom years back, and a friend of mine who I went to high school with, she had been skydiving. She went, took a thing, got certified, went skydiving. And I went to see, she just bought a brand new house. Went to her house, hadn't seen her in a while. She's like, hey, I went skydiving. I go, oh my fucking, and she's like a regular, normal, it's not something I would expect her to go do. And I was like, oh my God, that's fucking insane. She goes, do you want to see the video? And I lit up. I'm like, yeah, of course I want to see this video. The cheeks going back and you're jumping out of a plane. She shows me the video. I'm amazed by it. I'm watching. It's enthralling, right? I'm like, you're a madman. Why the fuck would you do that? Like, we get done. She was like, you're the first one of my friends who's wanted to see the video.
That's crazy.
I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, I've asked people. I said, I've been skydiving. Would you like to see the video? And people are like, eh. I'm like, have they been skydiving? She's like, no. I'm like if someone went skydiving every day, or they worked at a skydiving place, or they ate skydiving for breakfast, or all they did was fuck skydiving, I'd be like, okay, maybe they're tired of skydiving. But like, for people in the Midwest who have shit jobs with a shit existence, and their big day is getting fucking Portillo's dipped, it's like, dude, this chick went skydiving, man. Check it out. What's wrong with you?
I know. I took a lot of video, but I didn't want to post it because I was like, well, I can't really put it on my YouTube because it doesn't really fit with the rest of the things I'm doing. And I put some on Facebook, but it seemed like nobody really cared.
You should do an Instagram account for just your scuba diving.
I remember I was coming back from Wisconsin. I won't name the people because I was in a car and I don't know, I was talking about something sciencey, and one of these fucking assholes, because all he wanted to talk about was comic books or movies or whatever, and I brought it up, and the guy was like, "You're boring." I was like, "Fuck you."
The ocean.
You're boring because you're just reading about this thing that someone else did. I actually was doing something, and I wanted to talk to somebody about it. I've had all these adventures, and I was like, "You fucking nerd asshole."
But also, like, what is like the fact that dude was able to open his mouth and words could come out? That all came from the ocean. That all came out like, what do you mean boring? Like that's a very strange. That's a very strange.
To me, a lot of times listening to conversations about discussing which comic book character is the strongest in the Marvel. Like, I don't give a fuck. That's boring to me, to be honest with you. I'll talk about, the wonders of the fucking world all the time.
Also, if you think about it, if comic books were wiped out of existence, if movies never were created, we as human beings could still survive. Okay? Yeah. If you take away the ocean, we as human beings do not exist.
That's right.
So you can talk about which Seinfeld character can do what after Seinfeld, or which Marvel is the strongest, but the ocean is far from fucking boring. All right.
I know. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's a good place to end. The ocean is fascinating. I still think if you've got like video of you scuba diving and shit, put it online. I'll like it, even if it's just me. I'd love it.
I will. I'll share it.
Make a whole YouTube page. I mean, dude, that's an amazing idea. I would love that. But Tony,
thank you very much, John.
Dude, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. And if anyone is thinking about getting certified or going scuba diving, look into it. Do it. Figure it out.
Hit me up. I'll answer all your questions.
Tony can answer your questions, but he will not certify you.
Nope. I'll just assuage your fears.
Yeah, which a lot of honestly, when you said, when I was like, "Well, these things can eat you," that's just like you said, shark mouths are this big. It's like you're really not in as much danger as you think. You just have to be smart and respectful.
That's right.
As with all things.
Be smart. Be safe.
All right. Tony Sam, marine biologist, comedian. Get his album Scaredy Cat wherever comedy is sold.
Buy it.
Do it. Thanks, Tony.
See you, Johnny.
Later, buddy.
Bye.